already. It's been a couple of days actually since I watched the first two games between these two. This is the decider between Chrome and Gundabadboyz, and I believe, you know, I have apologies to make because I only, you know, I don't really look at who the players really are. I just see the names on here, and I think I've been referring to Gundabadboyz as he, but it is in fact she. So to be honest, Gundabadboyz, from now on I might just call you Scarlet. I'm pretty sure you're the only girl we've got in the tournament this year, I think, but I haven't actually checked the player list, but I think that's true. Anyway, yeah, if only you were playing, sorry. Gundabadboyz with this gas first. With it, I'm not 100% convinced about mine in some gas, and I'm not sure what for. And also a gas, what am I saying? It looks like Chrome's going for the same build now. In game one, Chrome just went like all up for the cheese, straight in with the dirty Ling Rush. And did the same thing in game two. In game two, Gundabadboyz had sort of adapted and overcome, so had gone ahead and built a wall, and the Lings achieved nothing. Gundabadboyz then sort of sat back and just did not a great deal for a long time, but built a bit of a fleet, built a reasonable army, but stayed home on two bases for a very long time indeed. And eventually Chrome just kind of gave up on trying to break it. It was a bit of a non-event, the last game, in many ways. Chrome went for this sort of early Ling pressure. It didn't achieve anything, and then sort of stayed on two bases as well for a very long time. So hopefully we'll see a little bit more back and forth in this game, a little bit more moving out, a little bit more owning the map and those types of things. But let's see. So it's a second gas coming for Gundabadboyz, and that is pretty early gas. You know, going gas first as a Protoss is kind of unheard of, really. Going double gas early if you're going for a very gas intensive build, like maybe a DT rush or something like that, I could envisage, but sort of going gas before gateway is very unusual indeed. Okay, Queen coming down, second Queen in production. The Evo chambers finished up, but I haven't seen any upgrades being researched there. Ling speed about halfway done, as we can see. One of these days I'm gonna, you know, do the thing where it pops up little timers to show you how long's left on upgrades, like they have in the GSL and stuff. That'd be pretty sweet. Yeah, but I haven't got that yet. So Chrome at the 3-minute mark appears to be building Lings. Yeah, you know, there's no supply block, there's no shortage of money, but there are idle larvae, so I don't really, I'm not sure about that. You know, why wouldn't you just turn those into workers? You're not saturating them in yet. You just build some stuff. The Roach Warren is going to come down, so it does look like Chrome has deviated from the Ling Rush, and I'm glad to see that, to be honest. Ling Rushes are awfully dull. They can often get you a cheap win, but it's not a very interesting way to play the game. I'm just looking at that. I think there is there a gap between? Not 100% clear, maybe there isn't. Anyway, I like this. I like the shield battery at the front door. This, I think, is going to get the Overlord, and that is slightly frustrating for Chrome because is supply blocked now. So 2 Overlords in production to fix that. Not much in production for Gunda. So come on, Gunda, you're walling up here as if you're expecting something almighty coming. But, you know, why not go across the map and have a look and get an idea if there's something coming, rather than just try and second guess it. You know, what you've just spent on cannons could have built you a Nexus. And that's a good thing. And are you going to need these cannons anytime soon? The short answer to that is no. You know, on the other side of the map there's a handful of Lings, that's it. That one cannon would see off handily enough. So Stargate coming down, and Robo as well. yeah, you know, one of the things you can do as a Protoss player that I'd strongly encourage Protosses to do is build sentries. They're a very handy spellcaster. One of the spells that they cast is hallucination, and you can, once your sentries have got a bit of energy to them, you can throw out a hallucinated phoenix, which is a very fast flying unit, and the hallucinations time out, and they don't take very many shots to kill them. They're a bit like a changeling for the Zerg. But yeah, you can hallucinate any unit you like of your own kind. So you can send the Phoenix across the map and just fly it over your opponent's base and get a scout. The Phoenix is so quick that it will generally get a full scout of your opponent's base before the Queen manages to kill it. And that's a really, really useful thing to do. Other options are build the Observer from the Robo facility there, and again, get that across the map. So bunch of units coming forward here with these. I like the inclusion of these Ravagers in the mix. Those can help a lot if you are going to be facing a wall like this. If you've got quite a few Ravagers in the mix, one of the things they do is throw these corrosive bars that sort of pop up into the air and land a few seconds later. So you head over here, you hit the C button, and you can just like click where you want those to land. And the way they land, they do a little bit of, they do splash in a small radius, but if you target the point in between the two cannons, it'll hit both the cannons. You know, so 3 corrosive bolts here, 3 corrosive bolts here, and there's no cannons anymore. And because of the way they do that damage quite fast, the shield battery doesn't have a chance to heal it up. So the Oracle comes out and sees this stuff, and that's really useful. Oracle, also a spellcaster. You're not really going to kill roaches needs to move the Oracle. You don't want to lose it to those corrosive bolts, and you want to finish off that roach rather than doing a little bit of damage to everything. You want to kill some of these. To be honest though, the beam from the Oracle doesn't fare that well against roaches. I mean, roaches can't shoot up, but yeah, the beam from the Oracle, it takes a fair while to kill roaches, so you run out of energy, as we saw there. The Oracle ran out of energy before it actually killed anything. So you can kill, I think, 1 roach before on a new Oracle before it runs out of energy. So you know, arguably, don't lose the Oracle. That would be a real shame. One of the spells the Oracle can cast is Revelation, where you spam that onto your opponent's units, and those units then give you sight for an amount of time, and that can be really useful just to keep track of your opponent's army movements. So this Oracle Gundam needs to be really careful because the shields are very low, as you can see, and it has very little health left. So you want to pull that back and let the shields recharge. They do recharge quickly. Once you're no longer taking fire, those shields will get up to max pretty quickly. So Void Rays coming out, and Void Rays do well against roaches. They have bonus against armored when you fire up that prismatic alignment. The Robo Bay is finished here, and wow, that is an expensive queue if ever I saw one. So try and avoid this if you can when you're playing. You know, if we think about the cost of these, a Colossus actually costs more than a robotics facility does. So you know, instead of this Colossus, build another Robo and crank them out 2 at a time. It doesn't make any sense to have these queued up. That's thousands of mineral and gas just parked in a queue that you can't spend on anything else. Colossus can be useful, but in low numbers against roaches they're not fantastic, but they will sort of clean up the lings very quickly indeed. I'm not sure if these queens are supposed to be coming forward. I don't know if that's a mistake. If you are going to do a march of the queens, normally you make sure your creep is extremely well spread first, because queens are remarkably slow off creep. This unit comp kind of looks a bit like what we saw in the last game, and it didn't work in the last game. So I'd like to see Gunda sort of branching out into something a bit different. The 2 Void Rays, I mean, the spores are actually pretty tough. You don't really want to stand and fight against that if you can avoid it. with the mutas here, these mutas and queens should be able to clean these void rays up pretty handily, and you're not going to be able to outrun the mutas. So a bit of a mistake there to lose those, but at least Gunda has come across the map and is having a poke. So I am all for that. One of the things you can do as Protoss, you have your Nexus can cast recall. So with your Nexus highlighted, you hit R and you spam some part of the map, and anything within a reasonable radius where you spam gets recalled to that Nexus. It takes a couple of seconds, during which your units cannot fire, but can take damage. So void rays, don't move that quickly. If you find your void rays in a position where you're going to lose them, where it isn't a fight you can win, and you're unable to run, one quick fix is to just hit the recall and recall them home. And yeah, you might still, you know, in those circumstances, you probably would have lost one of the void rays, but you would have the other one back home. So yeah, to beat these roaches, Gunda really could do with some immortals in the mix. Immortals pump out robust amounts of damage to armored units. Colossus won't fare just as well, but the Colossus do have that advantage that they have an enormous range, and the extra range, the upgrade here is researching, thermal lens researching there, which means they can shoot stuff from the other side of the map, but you will have to micro them a little bit. Now this shield battery will help this stuff stand strong. The 4 cannons that are here will have a fair old amount of DPS, and these 2 void rays, if you hit the prismatic alignment, can do quite a lot too. This is just an unusual amount of mutalisks. I don't really see the point of this. You don't build mutas to fight, you build mutas to kill these things. Mutas are a harassment unit. I mean, maybe against Terran combined with Ling Benling, you could see mutas used effectively, but you know, you need a flock of 20 of them, and you need to be replenishing them as they go down and stuff. Just having 6 mutas hanging about on the map isn't really going to achieve much. These queens can be surprisingly effective. They've all got full energy, so they can be doing transfuses on each other, on the other units, keeping them alive. But you know, this army hasn't really grown considerably from Chrome, and you know, given that we're at the 12-minute mark, you know, as Zerg you can max out in 8.5 minutes. You can hit the 200 supply, you can be maxed out on roaches, that sort of time, and if you really go for it. And we've not really seen much harass. There's a couple of void rays across the map. There was a little tickle from an oracle. You know, so ideally there'd be more. Gunda is going to have to be careful with the positioning here. You don't want these Colossus to be too far forward. You don't want them to get sniped. You want the Zealots in front of them. You want the Colossus at the back. The Colossus have the largest range, so there's no need for them to be at the front here. Now 4 Colossus will just evaporate these Lings before the Lings can achieve anything. The Colossus need to focus on the Benlings. If they focus the Benlings all die before they can do damage. I love that this worker is just stopping the Benlings getting in. That's kind of hilarious. Finally they come through and they do that hurt, but it's just not going to be enough. The shield battery, look, is completely out of energy now, but it's already done its job. It's kept everything here alive for quite a long time. The Queens finally will fall too. So a bit of a slogfest, really. Both sides taking fairly substantial losses. I know the units, the numbers on the units lost tab looks, you know, sort of massively in favor of the Protoss. But of course, you know, Lings are only half a supply each. That doesn't really tell the story. This tells a better story. And to be fair, even this is substantially in favor of the Protoss as well. So if we look at the resources lost, that's a better indication. It's sort of 4,000 to 6,000. So yeah. Zerg, you need to come in with overwhelming numbers, and you just don't need mutalisks in a fight. They don't add anything. They don't really do that much damage. They're pretty squishy units. They die fairly quickly. You know, mutalisks kind of tickle a Colossus unless you've got about 20 of them. So just the unit composition is pretty questionable. You just yeah, you know, Chrome has been playing StarCraft for a while and keeps telling me how easy it is to get to platinum and stuff. So what I'm saying here is not a platinum player. I'll be honest, Chrome. Yeah, these you know, this is enough mutas to just absolutely slay a mineral line. But you're parked at home with them. I'm not sure why. Your composition's off. I mean, now you're building Hydras, which are great. They do that fantastic high burst damage, really high damage output. But Hydras will melt to Colossus. You know, you don't build Hydras against somebody that you already know is gone Colossus. Certainly not without a thick wall of roaches to stand in front of them. So again, Gunda is going up to the fleet beacon this time with 3 bases up and mining, and it looks to be in reasonable shape. You know, look at this defensive posture, the 2 shield batteries here. This is, you know, you can't just casually walk in here and beat this. Only a very determined attack is going to get in here. So what I'd really like to see is Chrome coming in around the back with the Mutalisks and just putting hurt on. You know, just getting stuff done without, like, don't go for the frontal assault. You know, we're entering the late game now, and Zerg arguably has the strongest late game in StarCraft. There's plenty of units in the late game that are just indestructible. Ultralisks, Broodlords, Vipers, you know, Infestors with mind control, any of that stuff just makes for a savage army. But this is not a very big army. I mean, yeah, you're on 82 army supply, but look, you know, these guys, Hydras melt pretty quickly. Mutas don't really add much. Although, with that said, there's only 2 Void Rays here to kill the Mutalisks. Sorry, three Void Rays. Nothing else shoots up. Those Immortals are unfortunately trapped, and Gunda needs to do something about that. You know, because you need those Immortals in the fight. It looks like Chrome is going to come up here and. You know, most of the Protoss army not attacking, but just look how quickly Colossus shred Hydras. Hydras are light, and Colossus are just brilliant against light units. It looks like the Void Rays and the cannons on their own are just going to deal with the Mutas. As I say, Mutas just adding roughly nothing to this. The other obviously brilliant, oh no, this is unfortunate. The other brilliant late game unit that the Zerg has is of course Lurkers. And Lurkers can just deal out so much damage, it's untrue. And you know, it's certainly in a StarCraft league at EMS, where most of our players just aren't that familiar with the different unit types. Lurkers would be absolutely devastating because they're really hard to deal with, and of course they burrow, so you can't see them. So Chrome, you know, only mining with 4 workers here, 1 worker here, 12 here. This is not a very strong looking showing from our, you know, getting to platinum's easy Zerg player. Not a very strong showing. Your Protoss opponent, who I believe is new to StarCraft, has much more worker saturation, a substantially higher income, and you know, is building just a better unit comp. So if you're not careful, you're going to get thumped here by things like carriers that you just don't have an answer to. This is a tiny army. In the upgrades tab, yeah, so melee attack, armor, and we've got the Hydra upgrade. For the Protoss player, I think that's the Void Ray speed. I think it is. Thermal Lance, which is the extended range for Colossus, +1 ground attack, +1 armor, and +1 shields. So neither player really with substantial upgrades. I really want you to just bust this cannon so that your units can get out, because at present these Immortals are trapped, and Immortals like pack a serious punch. You know, they add a lot to any army, and with the barrier shields they can do quite well. So it looks like Chrome is lining up for another frontal assault, but to be honest, Chrome, I don't know what your rush is. You know, your army supply is miserable. You're not even at 100 supply total here. Like, if you're going for a frontal assault at 19 minutes, 200 supply, please. I want to see 200 supply of units, not some sort of miserable kind of, admittedly there's only 24 workers, but this is a 70 supply army, isn't it? And it's just not going to do it. Not against this, not by a long shot. So if this comes up, you know, who knows, some of the Benlings might bust through, but to be honest, there's a pretty good chance. There's 4 Colossus here with +1. There's a reasonable chance the Colossus will actually evaporate most of the Benlings before they get through. And with the shield battery, I'm not so sure it's going to do anything, to be honest, but we'll see. We'll see what the targeting's like. The Benlings don't have speed, and I think they're just going to die. There's no sort of lurkers here. The Queens are not far enough forward to actually get involved and do any transfuses. Yeah, it's just an absolute slaughter. That's, yeah. That was every bit as ugly as I feared it was going to be. That was a deeply unpleasant thing to watch. So, you know, the army supply of the Protoss basically didn't change, and well, there you have it. Chrome needs to do a bit of homework on how to beat, well, any Protoss composition that isn't simply you've got nothing because it's 3 minutes into the game and I've got lings. Back to the drawing board with that one, I'm afraid. GG.